Yo, what's up, guys? It's Goose from the Wise Wealth Discord. Didn't quite get to the video last night. I was pretty upset about the Bears, of course, but I was drinking a little bit too, and I didn't want to give you guys too sloppy of a video. So here I am, Monday morning, about I don't know, 4:30 in the morning. Should be just fine. Get the same amount of information. I wanted to start it off with the SPY. Pretty ugly weekly candle that we got there. Um, this is a weekly trend, so it was a pretty big fucking week, as you can see. From the top of the week, it was at 444, ended up about 430, a 3.5%, three and a quarter percent drop. That is pretty significant. Any ETF, a gain or a drop. So as you can see, it does look pretty ugly. Go to a little bit shorter time frame. Maybe get a little bit better idea of where the next support is. I was feeling like the support was about 430, 431 on the SPY. It looks like it broke down right at the end there, so we'll just have to wait and see. Right now, we're kind of in a downtrend now because we had a lower high right here, and now we're trading lower lows. So we'll have to see if we do come up. There is a huge gap here. I forgot what day that was. Looks like it was Thursday. Yeah, the opening on Thursday from Wednesday. About a 3/4% gap just sitting right there. So we'll see if it can eventually make a lower high and fill that gap. That's kind of what I wouldn't say hoping for, but there's been some major levels that were broken. As you could see that on the weekly, that's a pretty big bearish engulfing. It took up quite a bit of candles. You had one, two, two green candles that it was holding on to and just flushed out. So we'll see. The next support for me, like in the longer term, would be about 415, 420. I think that would be a solid little pullback. So like since that pullback started that Jimmy and I were talking about, so this was the top up here. We're down about 6.35%, which still is pretty generally speaking is like a pretty good sell off. Like it's nothing like you need to start panicking over because a lot of people I know I was kind of calling for closer to like 5 to 10%. That's personally where I was. And once we hit this point, we were at about 5%, and then it got bought up. So a lot of bulls, I think, got trapped there, thinking that it was going to continue to go up. But as always, you always just got to watch those levels. And with that being broken on the SPY, that was pretty big. The Qs is kind of in a different spot. They do have a solid support right here. So as you can see, that it was touched, one time, two times, three times, almost four, not quite there, but right here's the fourth or the fifth time. And SPY, they broke through their levels. So I had the green line there, and they have one, two, three, and it touched it, but it ended up breaking through. So I wouldn't say SPY and QQQ move pretty similar to each other, but you also gotta see the differences too. Is that Q right now actually is at support, and SPY broke through their support. So something to watch out for. I mean, I can't predict the future, but once you see, this big old thing, that was more for like the thumbnail I put treble, because this is a big weekly candle right here. It broke out of the little uptrend that it had going and it was holding. And once you see that break it down to the 15-minute, let me get rid of this big old circle. It just kind of flushed out. It just never really got any momentum. It tried to find support right here at my first green line that it was holding, and it started shooting up, and then once it lost it, it was gone. So we'll see if it like continues to range in here for a little bit. I don't know. I don't think there's any big economic data. I do see that right here, Thursday, September 28th, Fed Chairman Powell speaks, so that'll be a big one. That's right when the market closes too, so Friday could open up, could gap up, it can gap down. So we'll just have to see because there's PCE and you have the Chairman Powell speaking, which is always going to move the market drastically whenever he opens his mouth. So we'll see, man. It should be a pretty good week. Just watching the same levels on SPY and QQQ, seeing if Qs can hold this support, SPY, they did lose their support, so I don't know. I could see the next one being somewhere around here, the 425 area. Just a good psychological area. There is a gap right here to be filled, very minuscule, but we'll see. I think gaps that are in the upside are more likely to be filled than gaps that are in the downside, just because of how stocks generally always go up. But that last weekly candle, I mean, you could definitely see that there was some major levels broken out. And now you could start to draw like an overall trend because this is the weekly. You could maybe start to, that's a lot of lines, but see like a downtrend forming to where it could maybe create a lower low here. So I don't know. Lower low, lower high. And it's like with this weekly, it looks pretty mean. That was a mean candle. There were some levels that were broken. So some things to watch out for sure in the indexes. The dollar just continues to rise. As I keep telling you guys, is when the dollar is going up, you could see what's happening to these, the Qs, the SPY. Since the dollar's been going up the last few weeks, it's an inverse. So when the dollar's going up, it's not necessarily good for earnings because I forgot exactly how the math works out, but something to do with more expensive products or imports or exports, something like that. But the dollar is definitely an inverse to what the general stock market does. It's not guaranteed. Sometimes the dollar is up, but we're still ripping. But typically, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks in a row, or 10 weeks in a row, we've had green candles. This one's just starting out because it's Monday. But that's 10 weeks in a row we've had green candles. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 weeks we've been kind of in a downtrend on the Qs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. About 8 weeks we've been in a downtrend on SPY. So it's like it's something you need to keep your eye out for, because the dollar is kind of, like I always say, an inverse with this huge break in the upside, and it just keeps going. It's getting close to the RSI. It still has some room to run. I could see maybe like a, I don't know, 108 possibly. That would be a pretty big move for the dollar. Doesn't typically move quite a bit, but after breaking out of this, it definitely has some momentum going for it now to maybe, test these highs that it had in 2022 when the stock market was doing pretty bad. So I'm not quite panicking yet, but those were some pretty big levels. And as Jimmy said, the Bears are kind of in control right now. And until you start to see, bullish setups, you don't really want to start flipping your longs quite yet. I know it's tempting because you see how cheap they are, but you want to make sure some levels are supported here first. We have Apple. It did break out of that descending wedge that it had, and it looked like it was just a false breakout apparently because it didn't go quite back in it. But this support right here is huge for Apple. That 174.75 it looks like. So if it doesn't hold that, I mean, I could see it flushing quite a bit. It's been touched once, twice, 3 times, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 8 times. It's been touched. So if it does lose that, that'll be massive, and Apple moves the market quite a bit. If you get a 2% day out of Apple, green or red, I mean, you could best believe that the Qs are, running with it. Either way it's going. Yeah, Microsoft, it broke out of its huge uptrend that it had, so that's looking bearish as well. Possible retest could happen, but these are some levels that the retest did happen on the 15-minute, and it was denied, so we'll see. That does look kind of like a falling wedge. So you definitely just got to keep an eye out on it. Extend these a little further. Very, very tight range out of Microsoft. There's nothing like, not any huge volatility there. Right there it tried, but it was denied by that trend line that it was holding for a while. So there's some pretty big levels. Definitely starting to lean somewhat biased bearish, just like Jimmy was saying. There's bears are in control right now, and until you see A-class setups with bullish divergence and stuff like that with the RSI, I wouldn't quite switch to longs quite yet. Nvidia, they lost their huge trend. I've been plotting this uptrend that it's been having for a while. Tried to go up there and it just couldn't get it. But it's like it's the same thing with Microsoft. it has that falling wedge. So it's like these are things you want to be looking out for. Is that if it does switch, it would have to break through this, and then watch out for this resistance now, because this was support, one time, two times, three times, and then it lost it. And it's like now we're waiting to see if it could, possibly bounce off this purple box, hopefully about 370, 367 area, and then see if it can find support there again. Because if it does start to fill that gap, that's a massive gap that a lot of people have been eyeing. So it's going to get shorted like a motherfucker for if it starts filling that. It could, possibly be a bear fake, a bear trap, they would call it, if like it touches it and acts like it's gonna, then boom, everybody starts buying because Nvidia is a great company in the long term. Their PE is pretty high, but if you think about their growth perspective, I mean, it's a pretty good company to be in. So any dip, investors like, dips, they like to buy those. So just be weary. I know everything's starting to get pretty bearish, and like I showed you on the weekly chart, the Qs and the SPY, it doesn't look good, but these are all levels you definitely need to watch out for because it could start to flush pretty fast now that they're being broken down. Meta, I know I've been plotting this for a while. It's just been in this range. It lost it, and as you can see on the 15, it retested it and it was denied. So that could be another good short. We are in pre-market right now, so as you can see, we're gonna open up probably a little bit red. It's still too early to tell. We got about, I don't know, 2 hours and 3 hours, about 3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes to be exact, but about 3 hours until open. So we'll see. But a lot of these levels are being broken now, and people are starting to switch pretty bearish. But there's also good support levels. I would say if this is broken, it could come down right here to like about 280. 280 level would be a price target for Meta. We got Tesla. They were moving up, they were inching up, and they were flagging right here. Lost it, and then it drained from there. They have a good support right here at 244. If that's broken, I could see it coming to retest this ultimate trend line at 233, just to maintain that uptrend. Hopefully, if that's lost out of Tesla, I mean, you could maybe expect another lower low, because lower lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Tried to make a higher high there, but it was denied. Lower high. So we're just waiting to see if it does create a lower low. That would be a massive drop from Tesla. But if Tesla gets anywhere near $100 again, there's going to be a lot of dip buyers coming in to buy to sweep that up for that cheap discount. I mean, we're talking a parabolic crash, though. If it does come down to 100, that's close to, I don't know, a fat drop. We'll say that 58%. Yeah. If you're going into Kohl's or Macy's and you see a 58% sale, you're going to buy whatever that is, especially if it's a Tesla stock. So we'll see. I don't know. I don't see it going that far, but the market is kind of shaky right now. There's a lot of people that are fearing things. The reason for the drop is because the Fed um, said that they expect at least another quarter basis point hike by the end of 2023, and they expect to keep rates higher for longer. I think 2024, 2025, Jimmy was saying. He had mentioned something in the Discord after they said something. No, SPY was broken. Pressure at 130. Can't find it right now. I know he mentioned something about the Fed and what they said in their thing. Relentless selling, passive bulls need to hold these lows here, otherwise you're allowed to open air down the 200 EMA. So yeah, that'll be very interesting to see how this plays out, but there's definitely some levels that were broken today that were huge. Oh, right here. Fed officials still see a quarter basis point rate hike increase 23. Expect to hold rates higher for longer in 2024, 2025. So that was part of the reason for the huge sell-off last week. When you see those weekly candles on SPY and stuff like that, is because investors don't like when interest rates are high, and if you're going to hold them there for a couple of years, something's bound to break. There's already been liquidity issues in banks and stuff to that nature. So there's things you got to watch out for, and you're seeing all these, Amazon have been plotting this. It's been holding this uptrend for a long time, and it's just not losing it. It's like this is a long time. This is 2022 right here. It's been an uptrend for a whole pretty much 8 months, 9 months. So when you see these things break, the longer the trend holds, the longer the consolidation, the bigger the move is. So now that they're just breaking, I could see some of these gaps filling and then retest on some of these major trends that I'm showing you, and then we'll just see if there's continued downside. UPS, they did break through that line. They're right about that blue support. If they lose that, I could definitely see a huge downside because it's been coiling up for quite a long time, almost 2021. It's been coiling up. So if this loses this major support around 153, I could see a lot more downside possible retest because it hasn't had much of a bump and it's very oversold right now. So reset the RSI, maybe 157 level. You could think about shorting again. But things aren't looking good for sure. DraftKings, they broke out of their uptrend that they've had since nearly 2022. Yeah, right around January 2022, a lot of these stocks just started going on a crazy run. And now that there's a lot of fear, people are starting to dump their positions, and a lot of these levels that you see, as buy points are now sell points. So you need to watch out for the support that's turning into resistance. These are things that we're plotting. We got Boeing. They broke out of their wedge or their consolidation in the upside, and now they're selling back off. Their next support is around 196, 197 area. So we'll see if it can hold it. Things aren't looking too good, as I kept saying. Netflix, they broke out of theirs as well. They were in this uptrend for a very long time, around January 2022. They still are in this falling wedge, like all the other stocks are kind of in a decent consolidated sell-off. So it's like if these things do break above, that could start to be your bullish setups where you do want to go long. But until these things are broken out, you don't really know. You just want to wait to see if that does end up playing out before you switch to longs. Because I mean, oversold. Look at how oversold Shopify is. There is a big gap here, but there's still a candle here where it wouldn't quite fill the whole gap until 49. So we'll see if it can find support around $51 for a double bottom right here. Boom, boom. But these are just dwindling. I mean, you see how sold off they are, but now things are really oversold. It's just a matter of people when they want to start buying the dip and when people think it's a good deal. ARC, they lost their uptrend as well. So a lot of bearish setups here. The only thing that I could see is bullish is some of these gaps that they have that from that Monday to Tuesday. It's just been vigorously sold off, but it's not looking good right now. I don't want to say go all in on shorts, but there could be some good shorting points if we do have some buying up. Baba, they were up quite a bit Friday because China, they're just trying to add liquidity to their market, and investors love liquidity. So it looks like it got back up in this range that it's been trying to hold, and it's barely hanging on in pre-market. It's down 2.25 right now. So we'll see that that's a pretty big level because this is a huge. This we're looking at the 4 hour. The 1 day, this is a huge coil up thing. So if it loses this, it could flush back down. $60 to $40 somewhere around there. I'm a long-term investor in them. I have them at like 110 or 115. I think I have quite a bit of shares in them. So I'm hoping for a long-term reversal, but right now it definitely doesn't look the best. AMD, Jimmy had pointed that out that it lost its falling wedge that it had, and that's a big thing because it was coiling. A lot of people were thinking, pretty bullish with the cup and handle formation, but a failed bullish setup is usually a really bearish thing. Jimmy's mentioned that before, and that right there is a failed bullish setup. It's very bullish, but once you lose this, now it's looking pretty bearish, and that's going to be the new resistance. We'll see if it comes up and retest it. Maybe we can open some good shorts on there. that's about it, man. I just wanted to show you guys. I'm sorry I didn't get to you Sunday. I was drinking a little bit too much, and I didn't want it to be all sloppy and me to be too loud and crazy on the videos. But hope everyone has a great week. Any questions, comments, concerns, put it in the Discord.